All right, we're back here late on a Wednesday here on the Chase Thomas Podcast, the full ride here on the Chase Thomas Podcast, which means fellow University of North Georgia alumni Matt Green is here. He's got a Georgia helmet behind him now. It's every week. You never know. It's going to be a framed newspaper article, helmet. The only thing that's certain is that the Braves, Cubs, and Georgia Bulldogs flags will be behind him.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, those picture frames, that was just kind of the flex, a little of the championship hardware, But this obviously isn't permanently on my desk, but it felt like, perfect little office decor that I'm going for.
I would like to know what a championship feels like soon in that regard. It's been a tough week, Matt Green, here in the Thomas household in Knoxville, Tennessee, but we're getting through it.
I forgot about that. I wasn't even going to rub that in to you. But, big time season, for the Tennessee Vols. But what is it? Is it something like 22 years in a row now that the number one overall seed hasn't won the national championship?
3 straight number one overall seeds haven't even made it out of the Super Regional. So last year was Arkansas. They got upset by NC State. And then 2 years ago, UCLA lost as the number one overall seed in the Super Regional. That's
tough. And Arkansas, they were like the defending champion at that point, weren't they? Were they trying to go back to back? They won a championship recently, right?
I think that's right, if I remember correctly. That might be.
Yeah, that's tough. I full disclosure, I can't pretend that I wasn't rooting a little bit for the Fighting Irish, just because of all the everything school talk, sir. I'm sorry. I had to be honest with you. You knew everyone, and I don't even know as much about college baseball as a lot of people. Apparently everyone is rooting against this Tennessee team, for what it sounded like. People were not big fans of the way they played the game, if you will.
Yeah, I wrote a lot about that. I wrote 2 different pieces about that this week, highlighting a lot of that. Paul Feinbaum was the latest to rip Vitello and this team. And look, man, I as someone who has watched this team a lot and as someone who has seen what they've done in the community, to see how this program rallied around Evan Russell and Charlie Taylor and who those guys really are, and to have fun. And yeah, you can cite the flicking off the outfield in Georgia Tech game and getting really, really emotional. But like when you're playing high stakes baseball, this team lost exactly 0 home series this year before the Notre Dame loss. 0. They lost 1 series as a whole, and that was against Kentucky, a random Lexington, Kentucky team late in the year, and it was a mess. And then they came back. They did not. They were not down the entirety of the SEC tournament. They never trailed, and they are the only SEC team not to make it out of the Super Regional. Everyone else did. Like you said, a lot of folks, this Tennessee team rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But what drives me nuts is, like, I don't really care if they're your cup of tea. I don't care because I enjoyed every second of this season. I was there in the building a lot, and just seeing this team just bury people 10-1, like good baseball teams 12-1, 10-2.
Without a doubt. I remember Bill Green, my dad here, getting a shout out on the pod. He coached us in youth sports. I remember him always talking, like, do you want to be that team that people are like, those North Gwinnett guys, they're just a bunch of good guys. I really like playing against that team. Or are you going to be like, get after it and be like, yeah, I hate playing against that team.
Yes.
Like, you want to be the team no one wants to play against. Yeah. So, no, they were definitely, what were they, 50, 55 and 8?
56 and 7, yeah.
56 and 7, yeah. That's tough. On the bright side, you do have the championship feel of the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, this is not hyperbole. Mm-hmm. The Atlanta Braves are never going to lose again.
Yeah. They are undefeated in the
14 in a row. Mm-hmm. Never losing again.
Yeah. It's, hey, little things. But they also won last year, so you're still getting some fool's gold there. Losing Ozzie this week really hurt. That's a bummer for the foreseeable future. I don't think he's back 100% all year.
Orlando Garcia picking it up, though, while Ozzie's out. 2 bombs in 2 games. Who knows?
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm sure it's sustainable. Like, it's going to be okay.
No, I'm sure.
But, yeah, ultimately, the thing about college baseball that's different, and I'll put a bow on it in this regard, but I think a lot of the people – there's 2 things I want to end with this. A lot of the people who were like, humble pie, like, that was the narrative, is this is why you don't act this way. This is why you don't pump your chest out and you don't do. The problem with that is all those people watched as Tennessee won game after game that way. Was it because Arkansas didn't play this way last year? UCLA did not do that either. As the number 1 overall seed, they just lost. Sometimes that's baseball. So the people who are like, oh, you got a case of humble pie, this is why you don't talk, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is their comeuppance. It's like, no, that's just baseball. It took them
it's kind of true to an extent, though. It's like baseball is like the ultimate like humility sport. Like, if you grab your crotch, go nuts, flick people off, like, and then strike out your next 3 times at bat, you just seem kind of silly.
Well, that's kind of what happened, though. It was 50-plus wins where you're just
for sure.
burying people. And it's just funny to me because, like, there was a Notre Dame kid who flicked off the student section in Tennessee when he was rounding the bases at one point. You have their celebration where they do like a grenade where whenever they hit a home run, you saw it if you watch any of the games, where if they hit a home run, when they're jumping off the field, he jumps into the team circle and they all pretend a bomb just went off. Like, it's all fine. It's all fun. But the reason that Tennessee lost over the weekend is not because of how they celebrated. It's not because of how this team operated. Just say, like, we left Chase Burns in a little bit too long. Our bats went cold at the worst possible time. But the humility or the bravado or whatever the way we carried ourselves is not the reason Tennessee lost that series. It has nothing to do with it. So the people who are like, it's a humility thing, it's like, no, because in Vitello, and I wrote about this today, is in a lose-lose situation where it's like, if Tennessee had run the gauntlet, the same folks would be like, oh, the nastiest title of all time. They played the game the wrong way. They celebrated the wrong way. No, we don't like this program. But then if they lose, it's like, oh, see, told you so. This way of playing doesn't work. And it's like, well, did it not work for 22 straight number 1 overall seeds? Like, it's just so mind-numbingly simple and stupid the way that this Tennessee team has been talked about and what has come out of this week. It just sucks. Those kids were...
No, that's fair. But you can understand when you become the villain after playing like that. They kind of accepted that role, like...
Yeah.
So
but they have, like, they've never...
You're going to have more teams rooting against you when you play a certain way.
Well, we're not going
rightly
anywhere.
Or wrongly.
Vitello is not changing. He just won Coach of the Year.
Like, he should. Tennessee should try to win 50-something games again next year.
Yes, and that's the cool thing about baseball, too. It's like, you just want to be in the mix every year. You want to have a program where you're like, if the chips go the right way, like, we went to Omaha last year, and Omaha was this 2021 team was a great team, but they were not this team, and they went to Omaha, and this team doesn't. Like, baseball, like you said, it's just, baseball's weird, and the whole thing is to be in the mix year over year, and that's going to be the case. This Tennessee team's going to be jacked again next year, and it's going to be one of the best SEC teams, and it will be going forward. Like, there's just, the program's in really good shape, the recruiting, transfer portal, all that kind of stuff's really, really strong. The rotation comes back, but for the people who are very, very happy that Tennessee went down. Man, I had so much joy watching this team up close, and it sucked the way it ended over the weekend. But, man, the way this team just dominated people is something I've never seen before, Matt. And, like, I'm going to tell my grandkids one day of, like, you would not believe.
Oh, you can't be telling your grandkids about teams that lose in the Super Regional.
Yes, you can, because of what they did. They had.
This isn't the Fab Five. The Fab Five got to the national championship.
Well, here's the difference. There's so many more levels. Like, you have to get through the SEC tournament. You got to get through regionals. You have to get through super regionals. You have to get through the College World Series. Like, it's so difficult to run the College World Series gauntlet. But, like, I told some folks, too, what sucks about college baseball versus, like, college football is that, like, we were the Alabama of college baseball this year. This was the Death Star of college baseball. And it reminded a lot of folks where Alabama, you just felt helpless week over week during the pinnacle. And that's what we were doing to teams. Like, were you guys
down your top 2 wide receivers?
No, I'm not saying this past year. I'm saying prime.
Joking.
Yeah, no, I'm saying prime. And we were down our best player on Saturday because he got tossed early on Friday for arguing balls.
Yeah, he reminded me of Jackie Moon there. What did I say? You said S my C, Jackie.
But here's the issue with that too. I have so many horses to die on. I can. Goodness gracious. But ultimately, I don't even remember my train of thought anymore. Whatever. Go Vols. Things are fine.
Everything's school.
Everything's school. That's where we're at. Speaking of schools and college football in general, Matt Green, how many days until the return of college football?
We are 79 days away from the college football season, sir. I'm glad you asked.
I thought you were about to do a We Are Penn State type deal. You had the pause there where it felt like a We Are Penn State.
Oh, did I? No,
Yeah.
that's not where I was going with it. But yeah, we are farmers. Honestly, is what I think of before I think of we are Penn State. But we're gonna go with 79, the greatest 79 of all time, Jonathan Ogden, UCLA. I think you could argue greatest offensive tackle of all time, really, Jonathan Ogden. I think most people probably say Orlando Pace. But this guy, like, you look up Jonathan Ogden's pro football resume, it's just absurd. But he was the same dominant force in college. What was he, 6'9", like just absurdly huge. But yeah, Jonathan Ogden, I think, was the clear number 79 here. So we got 79 days till college football. So I started looking up a little about Jonathan Ogden, right? Fourth overall pick of the 96 draft, okay? 3 Pro Bowlers went ahead of him. None of them Hall of Famers. Do you think you can guess who the first 3... 2 of these guys played for the same school that went top 3 in the draft. Do you think you can name top 3 picks of the 96 draft that went ahead of Jonathan Ogden? That's your first round of your trivia.
96. Was it 2 Penn State guys?
It was not.
Okay, this is not the.
It was 2 Big Ten guys, same school, not Ohio State.
Michigan?
No. If I gave you the school, I'm not sure you would know it, to be honest. You might get one of them. Illinois.
96, Illinois?
Illinois, which I'd have to look up what Illinois did in 1995. But
oh, there's no way, man. I have no idea.
Simeon Rice.
Oh,
you
my
remember
goodness.
Simeon Rice?
He was an Illinois guy? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, he went 3rd overall.
Yeah.
Kevin Hardy went 2nd overall. I don't know if you don't remember that name. Played for Jacksonville for a few years. He was a Pro Bowler, not a Hall of Famer. Keyshawn Johnson went 1st overall in that draft. Second part of my of the trivia for you. 5 Hall of Famers were drafted in the 96 draft, Jonathan Ogden being one of them. How many of the other 4 Hall of Famers from the 1996 draft can you name? I would say all 4 of these guys probably have an argument for being like top 5 of all time in their position. Like these are some elite Hall of Famers here. Also in 1995, Illinois went 5-5-1. So Simeon Rice and Kevin Hardy did not have a huge impact on that win-loss record.
Okay. So this is before Peyton, Woodson. This is 96. Let me think. Curtis Martin? Is he in that?
Oh, that's a good guess. I don't know what year he's drafted, but no, that's wrong.
I'm thinking.
Is Curtis Martin top 5 all time? No one would ever say that. Get out of here.
So you're saying top 5 of their
I'm saying these
position
guys
all time.
could borderline. They have a legitimate argument.
Troy Aikman was not 96, was he?
No, I was going to get to the quarterbacks last with you, so I'll get to the quarterbacks.
Man, this 96.
I'll give you the positions.
Okay.
2 wide receivers, a linebacker, and a safety. A middle linebacker and a safety.
Zach Thomas?
Oh, that's a good guess. No. You may give him to you?
Brian Urlacher?
No, I think he was a little later, like 01.
96, middle linebacker.
But it's
Teddy
Urlacher level. It's Urlacher level. Who?
Bruschi?
No. Teddy Bruschi. Get out of here. Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis
is the linebacker from 96.
I was thinking he was later. Okay.
Safety. What about the safety?
Safety. Not Ed Reed.
Yeah, because Ray Lewis was a little bit before like the U kind of got rejuvenated. He was probably there for the worst years.
Safety. Steve Atwater? No.
I'm gonna give you this. I'm gonna say Brian Dawkins.
Oh, is he 96? Okay.
And then the 2 wide receivers. And I mean, these are 96. These are right up your wheelhouse. These are receivers you remember growing up.
Not Moss.
Nope.
Jerry Rice? No.
No.
Yeah, that's 96. What am I doing? I'm just thinking top 5. Like, I'm just naming top 5 in my head. of all time.
They're close. I mean, they have to be. You have to get to these guys pretty close if you're naming like the greatest receivers of all time.
Not Tim Brown. Not. Hold on, I'm thinking. Marvin Harrison.
Marvin Harrison. There you go. There's one. You got one.
Okay.
He was a first. I think he was a late first rounder, or 19th overall. Not too late.
Okay. Marvin Harrison got one. Not Jimmy Smith. Not.
This guy was a third rounder.
He was a third rounder?
Yes, almost near the end of the third, almost fourth rounder.
Not Irvin. Not Steve Smith. I'm looking at my NFL helmets right now.
All right, I'm just gonna say
Chris Carter.
No, good guess though. T.O. Terrell Owens.
Was he really 96?
Yes.
I
mean, what, he played like 15 years in the league or something?
I guess he did. God, we're getting old, man. I'm like,
but yeah, so big time draft in 96. Last thing I'll say, quarterbacks, 2 quarterbacks went in the first 3 rounds of this draft. No, none in the first round. Probably the 7 quarterbacks total in this draft. Probably the worst crop of quarterbacks I've ever seen in
Who
one
was it?
NFL draft. I think Tony Banks was probably the best quarterback in this class. He went in second round. You remember him, Baltimore.
Yeah.
Danny Cannell was in this draft, like 4th round. No disrespect to Danny Cannell. Appreciate the work you do. And then Bobby Hoying from Ohio State. Like, he was probably the next best one. Like, there was absolutely nobody in this draft as far as quarterbacks go. It's crazy.
That's wild. Interesting. Okay. Well, there you go. Trivia time. That was good. That was fun.
Yeah, man. So 79 days till college football season. We're getting there.
We are getting there. Matt Green, Texas A&M. What did Nick Saban suspended or fined this week for what he said out loud about Texas A&M buying their entire recruiting class? When you saw this, what was your first reaction, Matt Green?
Like, I was hoping they had some kind of, like, I don't know, a smoking gun I wasn't aware of. Like, what rule did he break? Like, we're going to suspend Nick Saban for giving his opinion about another team? Like, no. I thought, honestly, I'm just so tired of Texas A&M already. Like, people are, like, when you're the upstart that's, like, trying to, like, knock off one of, like, the big boys and you're, like, doing it, like, you're building that, like, people don't root against that team. Right? Like, people are like, they usually want someone to knock off the big boys, you know? Mm-hmm. People, A&M, just what they keep talking. They're not a team that anyone's pulling for. Like, even though they're like, everyone complains about seeing the same couple teams win all the time. Like, you would think you would like to see A&M come along and challenge them. But because of Jimbo just running his mouth and them just whining all the time, like, I don't know, it's, like, I'm almost tired of A&M already. I think everyone's tired of A&M. It's like, guys, just win more than 8 games in a season, and then, then we'll worry about you guys. Like, just, if you're not breaking any rules, like, why are you worried about the perception of how you got your recruiting class? Like, I don't know. It feels so, I don't know, inferiority complex to me.
Well, it's definitely like one of those things where I don't think Jimbo understood, and this is still something where, I mean, I don't think Saban, I'll take this to the end, is that, like, I don't think Saban was attacking Jimbo. I think he was looking at it as, like, this is where we're at, this is what we've got to change to compete with A&M going forward. It's such a silly thing that got blown out of proportion, where this comes out, and you're, like you said, where you're with the big boys now. Like, this is not what you do, man. Just take it in stride and move on. Like, this is not something that you need to go to war with. Like, this is, there is nuance there where A&M, like, you've developed this great pipeline. You have a great history. Like, you've had number 1 picks in the draft, like Myles Garrett. You're building something. Like, 2 years ago, they were on the precipice of making the college football playoff. Like, that's something that people discounted, is that the 2020 A&M team was really, really good. And I think people just kind of forgot about that when people talk about A&M still hasn't broken through in the SEC. And I'm like, well, they kind of did in 2020. It was just a weird year in the COVID year. So it was just bad timing on that front. There was a case to be made. They were one of the 4 best teams in college football. in 2020.
I mean, I was arguing them over Notre Dame just because, we saw what they did against a healthy Trevor Lawrence, basically, got blown out of the water. But there was also the Ohio State aspect, too, that we all just knew how good Ohio State was, but they went like 5-0, 6-0, and we just put them in the playoff. Like, no, they're good, though. Just put them in there. And they wanted me to beat Clemson, so they obviously were really good. But we've seen Ohio State be the most talented team in the country, basically, every year over the last decade, and somehow lose to Iowa, somehow lose to Purdue. So, like, if you play a 12-game schedule, they definitely could have been tripped up. And A&M sitting there at 10-1, like a normal season, it's very possible they could have gotten in the playoff.
Yeah, and I just it's one of those things where A&M, like, you're getting compliments. Like, everyone wants to be in the position that you're in right now. You have this great thing where you have an elite coach who's won a national title. You've got elite talent. You got elite recruiting. You've got a strong staff. Like, you beat Alabama this past year. Like, things are good, man. Like, just take it. Like, you're not, like you said, it's an inferiority complex where it's like, look at Texas. They would kill to be who you are right now. They cannot get their ducks in a row ever. And you're over here just chugging along, number one recruiting class. Like, you had the number one class. You have Saban shook a little bit where you're like, I don't know how I'm going to compete with him year over year if they have this.
How many times do you think Alabama fans talked about how much they hated Mark Richt? Mm-hmm. Do you think they ever said anything about Mark Richt? And 2 years into Kirby, maybe a year into Kirby being at Georgia, they hated Kirby. So if Alabama hates what you're doing or has something, takes exception to what you're doing, you're probably doing something right. So
I would agree. It's like a compliment that Saban went after you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you said is ultimately right. He wasn't actually coming after them. This wasn't a SEC Media Days thing. He's talking to his base, and he's like, look, they just bought every player they got. If we want to compete, we need to go out and start buying players. Like, that's what he's saying. So he's really like trying to loosen the purse straps, if you will. So I don't know. I felt like once I heard it, I just felt like A&M. Wow, it's just more whining from A&M, basically.
I think it was one of those things too. I think it was Chuck Oliver of 680 who said it's like one of those things where Jimbo, when you look at his age and you look at what he was brought up into and what the rules have been in college football forever, I think those older coaches are going to take this kind of thing more personally, where it's like, well, that's cheating. And it's like, well, no, what you're doing is legal, but they see it, they hear it, and they think cheating and like, oh, you're disrespecting. It's like, no. The new era of college football, you're doing it right. Like, what we're actually saying is you're not cheating. You are playing within the system that is currently constructed, and you're doing it better than anybody else. Like, I don't think Heupel would have that same response that Jimbo did about this upcoming recruiting class or anything like that. I think it's more the younger coaches like Napier, I don't think will have this response. I think it's one of those where I think it might be an age thing where coaches who have done it for so long and have done it the right way or know how have just been brought up and coached in this industry for decades and known like what is cheating and what's not and like how you talk about this kind of thing. It's just going to take some time for these guys to get used to it, where Saban, even at his age, he's like, this is the reality. This is what we're doing. But other coaches, if you've been in it for a long time, you are less inclined to just be like, oh yeah, that's it. Like Kirk Ferentz of the world. Like that would, I'm sure he would have a close reaction to the way Jimbo did, or Gary Patterson, or
kind of like guys. Bo Ryan when they lost the national championship to Duke. It's like, we're never going to do that rent a player garbage. It's like, well, the best players in the country are going one and done to college, so you should probably try to get some of those players. Whatever. It's like Dabo saying he's not going to use the portal or whatever. It's like, okay, you can sit on your high horse if you want, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't utilize everything you can to make your team as good as you can. So I'm sure he's just a little insulted. Like, A&M is signing a couple top 5 classes before the NIL thing, came to be, but like, just who cares? Like, you're signing number 1 classes. Like, that's what it takes to win national championships. Like, you have to sign big time classes. Like, you're on your way. Like, you beat Alabama last year, even though you only it finished 8-5 or whatever they finished. It's like, you
were on the precipice of the playoff 2 years ago. Like, things are good.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, don't worry about what the haters are saying. Like, get out of here.
Exactly. I agree 100%. Well, Vic Burley. Oh, speaking of it, because we got Clemson on the brain now, because we're going to talk about Clemson in a second. But do you know how many? I heard this today on another podcast, and I hadn't considered this because I knew they were okay. Like Clemson was never an elite football program before Dabo started this run in 2015. But do you know how many top 5 finishes the program actually had before this run started?
Well, I know they won the championship in like 81 or something like that. I don't know, ever? Maybe, 7?
1.
Wow, really?
They had only finished in the top 5 once before this run started.
Wow, I did not know that.
Is that not insane?
Because I think of them as a respectable program. Like
they had a bunch of good, solid years. Like they're just solid, but it was never
the
top
Woody
5.
Dantzler years.
Yeah, Charlie
Whitehurst. There you go.
Like they were always solid. They were just never great. Chauncey Stuckey, like all those great Northside Warner Robins.
Who was the quarterback when C.J. Spiller and James
Boyd?
That was probably after. That's probably after Whitehurst, but before Taj Boyd in there.
Is it before Taj?
I was thinking so because I'm thinking James Davis and Spiller. That was like 06, 07. I don't know. We'll have to get back to you on that one.
But that's just kind of what it was. They were just not. They were not that kind of program, and now they are. They get Vic Burley, 5-star kid. He's from Warner Robins. He committed this week to Clemson. This was not a shock to me. I remember listening to Austin Price on VolQuest podcast a couple weeks ago because Vic was part of the big Rocky Top Palooza over Memorial Day weekend in late May with all the 5-stars and 4-stars who were on Tennessee's campus, and he just said he's not coming. And it was one of those things where, and he was like, he's not going to Georgia either, I think. And I was like, because I assumed if he didn't go to Tennessee, he was going to Georgia, being a Georgia guy. And he winds up at Clemson. So that was pretty interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, big time dude for Clemson for sure. Like he's top 40, top 50 commit. So, yeah, getting guys out of the state of Georgia, that's been Clemson's bread and butter here in recent years. I feel like they, especially defensive line, they seem to have gotten a lot of guys out of the state of Georgia, and you're going to see that with how good of a program they are. I think he's more. I don't know if he's supposed to be more of a pass rusher, or more of that like. I guess Clemson runs that 4-3, so I guess be that your typical like stand up defensive end, or sometimes have your hand in the dirt. So. Yeah, getting big-time dudes out of Warner Robins for sure. And they also got Jamal Anderson's son as well from Mill Creek.
We're getting old, man.
My buddy actually, they're family friends with Jamal Anderson and his family. Like she nannied for them and stuff when they were younger. I'm sure for this kid when he was younger. So he was talking about going on official visit to Florida. And my buddy's a huge Florida fan, so they were going to let him take him on the visit to Florida. But I think with all these spots getting snatched up by Clemson, this is like their 5 or 6 commits, I think, in the last week or two. I think he just wanted to make sure he had a spot, so he went in and jumped on.
What position is he?
I believe he's a safety.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that.
Interesting. Tennessee got another legend, but he's also following his dad, though, not doing the Rodney Harrison's son is part of this class at Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think his son, I forgot where he went in Atlanta.
I know Todd Bowles' son is also a big-time linebacker in this class as well. I think he was visiting Georgia this past weekend.
Interesting. I would assume he's...
Troy Bowles, I want to say. Because he's the head coach now, right?
He is the head coach
in Tampa Bay.
Yeah. That is interesting. There was one other guy who I saw where I was like, what was that class? There was that picture of the 3 baseball players, like Sheffield, Drew Jones, and somebody else where you're like, goodness gracious. I think Marquise Grissom's son plays for somebody.
Is that right?
Is he a Tech guy? He might be at Georgia Tech. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of folks who,
I think Asante Samuel was the first one that I was like, wait, what? He was playing in like 2010 or something. Like, where his kid, he's already got a kid playing D1. I mean, he might be in the NFL now.
He is in the NFL.
Yeah, so yeah, that was the first one. I feel like that really made me feel old.
Yeah. I wish I remembered. I don't remember the first guy. I mean, Fernando Tatis Jr. was kind of wild. I remember that stunned me where I was like, Fernando Tatis has not been out of the league that long. Like, why? Like, that was one of those where that was pretty wild. Well, the Big Four, Matt Green, they're moving to the Big 12 starting next year. I love that there's going to be an overlap with this Big Four coming into the Big 12 and that we're going to get this at least for 1 year, maybe two.
Are we? There's no chance. Have they announced that we're getting that? I think
Oklahoma and Texas are not out next year. Like, the earliest is 2024. So they're getting a year with this group.
To me, this is the writing on the wall. Why would you? I just don't think you would do that. It would be so.
It's a lot of money.
It's all about
for them
money.
To get out earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This feels like the writing on the wall.
The SEC's in no rush to add them. They're already getting 2 of 4 in the college football playoff every year.
But what are we gonna have? I guess this is just a 14-team conference for just 1 year, so it's not an absurdly big conference. And I guess it wasn't announced that BYU. They announced the other 3, but I guess because BYU is not in a conference. So okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't have to leave a conference to get in. So. Yeah, I'm all for it, man. I hate like this idea of these lame duck conferences. It's like we know what we're gonna do. Just go ahead and throw them in there. Like we want to see these teams in the Big 12. It'll be interesting for sure. I guess you think they'll definitely have this 14-team conference for one season?
I think it's gonna be 2. I really don't think Texas and Oklahoma are coming early. I think it's 2025 is when they come. Because I don't think the college football playoff's changing anytime soon. So I think we got a couple more years of that. And because of that, and because that the SEC feels good about how represented they are in the college football playoff year over year, they're not in any rush to add more pieces to the pie yet. Like, they've already got them locked in. They know they're coming. So it's like, hey, let's just drag this out for a couple more years. We're fine. We're going to keep putting 1 to 2 in every year anyway. I don't know. I think it's a lot of money they'd have to shell out to get them out of there quicker. I don't think that's going to happen. And it's like Oklahoma's going to be fine. Like, I read a really good piece on ESPN about the plan Venables has in place, and he brought in the guy who really helped Dabo. It's like Thad Turnipseed, I think is his name, something like that.
Turnipseed?
Yeah. Who? Yeah, man.
I've not heard of this guy.
Well, he's just a behind-the-scenes wonder guy who's built a lot of programs, and he's kind of one of the big names behind the scenes who built Dabo and Clemson up in 2015. But you read about the operation, you read about Venables' vision, and like how like he's doubled the staff, and he's just added like he has studied how they're going to have to transition. He's obviously someone who's had success against the SEC. Clemson having a lot of success over the years against Alabama. I think Oklahoma's going to be fine. And I actually think Venables is going to be a better fit against SEC competition week over week than Lincoln Riley would have been. No disrespect. They're both great coaches in different ways. But I do think Venables, I think he's going to be fine. I think Oklahoma's going to be fine in the SEC. I do not think Texas is going to be fine. And I think this is a doomsday scenario with them having to stick around for 2 more years potentially with the Big Four. Because here's the thing. Houston's been better than Texas. UCF was better this past year. BYU was definitely better and in a better spot. Like,
but the level of competition is also very different too, though. It's like, I mean, the AAC has been good for a Group of 5 conference, but week in and week out, Texas is playing more difficult competition than Houston or UCF are.
That's true, but I'm telling you, man, this is. They do not want them in this conference next year because this is just, I'm telling you that, like, there's a possibility that they go, like, with Cincinnati, too, who I didn't even mention, who just went to the college football playoff. They're absolutely in a better situation than Texas. There's a chance Texas, like, goes into the SEC under 500. That they're, like, they finish 6th, 7th in the Big 12. Like, they are no sure thing whatsoever. And these programs that are coming to the Big 12 next year, all of them are in a healthy football place. UCF with Gus, like, it was a weird transition. They still beat Florida in the bowl game. They went bowl eligibility. Cincinnati is in a great place. They are able to keep Fickle. BYU is a premier program right now. They know exactly who they are. They're going to be a pain in the ass every week. And then you have Houston, who might go undefeated this year with their schedule. Like, these are 4 really competent college football programs that are moving up that are not scared of Texas. Look at Sam Pittman. He's like, I want to play Texas every year. Give me Texas. I think the SEC is licking their chops with Texas, and I think these guys who are coming into the Big 12 are like, Oklahoma's going to be a pain. Like, we're not expecting to upend that. Like, they've run this conference for 20 years now. But, like, Texas, they think they're going to leave, and they're going to blah, blah, blah. Here's a rude awakening. You're going 3-9 when you leave. That's what's happening. We're just going to bury you. Like, they are going to get everyone's best game, and I don't think this is going to go well with these teams going into the conference before they leave. I think it's bad.
Oh man, I definitely can see that. Like, there's definitely a possibility of that. I think this is going to be a perfect, like, controlled variable, I think, for the Group of Five versus Power Five debate that we've always had for years. Because Houston, these all do seem like very competent, like, established, like, just stable programs. And so I would really like to see, like, I'm going to like to see what they do in their first year against Big 12 competition. Because the Big 12 isn't the SEC. It's not the Big 10. But it is still a good conference with a lot of good teams. And it's better than playing East Carolina and better than playing, I'm blanking on Tulane's of the world. Like, it is a much more difficult conference. So and those those four teams are going to make it a better conference too. I wonder how good they really are, and I think we're going to see it play out on the field.
There is a scenario where they're 3-9. Folks, write it in. I'm not trying to upset you, Longhorn Nation, but
don't you think there's a scenario where Cincinnati joins the Big 12 and they go 7-5, and they're just like, oh wow, we play like two games a year versus the 5 or 6 or 7 best teams we're playing in the Big 12. Like, I think that's also a very real possibility for UCF and for Houston too. So, and BYU especially, like BYU.
They play a tough schedule.
Isn't typically they do, but they don't typically play the level of athlete that's playing in the Big 12, that's playing in the Southeast, like UCF is playing. So I don't know.
Hold on,
we'll
BYU
see.
Basically won the Pac-12 last year. Let's not forget they were the Pac-12 South champions.
That's true. Pac-12, I'd say, is by far the worst of the Power 5 conferences, right?
I mean, they beat Washington State. They lost to Baylor. They crushed Virginia. They beat
Utah
USC
last year, right?
They beat Utah. They beat Arizona. They beat Arizona State.
They did beat the Pac-12 champion. That's respectable.
I'm not worried
sure.
about BYU in the Big 12. Like, I'm not worried. And you know
That's
what else
fair.
bums me out is that, like, this all makes sense. Like, I wish Texas and Oklahoma were staying because this would be a great, fun conference. If this was the 14 for a while, like, this would be a really fun, competitive, pain-in-the-ass conference. A lot of different kind of teams. I think this would be really, really cool. And Texas.
Yeah, it honestly would be. I'm curious to how BYU got in one of these conferences before Boise State ever did.
Size.
Like, is that it? Like, what no one
Boise
wants to go
State's
up to
enrollment?
Idaho.
I don't think they have the money. I think BYU.
Salt Lake City is also probably like a bigger TV market maybe than Boise, I would assume.
I don't think they could get the facilities. Like, okay, so their enrollment was 22,000 in 2015. I don't think the money is anywhere close. I'm going to go ahead and guess that BYU is a lot more money and more booster power than
Yeah,
Boise.
that could be it.
Because now I'm looking. BYU enrollment
Also,
33,000.
To update you on Clemson's quarterback situation.
Yes.
In 2009, it was Kyle Parker.
I remember him. He had a visor.
That's literally what I was going to say. Willie Korn, big-time 5-star, was a true freshman on that team.
I have no recollection of him.
You don't remember Willie Korn?
I don't remember.
He was from that powerhouse Burns in South Carolina.
Okay.
But he was like maybe the number one quarterback in the country, but I don't think anything ever really happened with him. But James Davis wasn't on the team in 2009. 2008 was the last team with James Davis and C.J. Spiller, which they only combined for just under 1,400 yards between the two of them. I was kind of surprised by that. And Cullen Harper was the quarterback. 13 touchdowns and 14 picks. So, not damn, but his junior year he had 27 touchdowns and 6 picks. So I'm not sure what happened to Cullen Harper his senior year from 06
Strong
to,
Stetson
from
Bennett
07
vibes
to 08. But No, opposite. He had a
No, Stetson
great
went-
junior year and a terrible senior year. This guy did.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Wait, what? That's what
Stetson showed the natural improvement. This guy got good, and then his senior year was terrible.
Oh, you're saying it flipped. Okay, never mind. I
Yeah.
misunderstood.
So
Okay.
let's hope that's not Stetson's. He's still gonna play his senior year. So
The weird thing about Stetson too is just that, like, if you talk to any Georgia fans who, look, you're still riding high, it's great, but like it ends with a loss. Like Stetson does not end the year better than he had it last time. Like he's not riding out into the sunset. Like if you're betting on running the gauntlet back-to-back years, man, you're a college football historian, Matt Green. You know how this goes.
I would not bet on Georgia winning the national championship this year, although I did put a futures bet in for them to win last year. Won a cool 500 last year. No big deal.
Did you really?
I did.
Never
10-1.
this.
10-1 odds. I took them, put 50 down. Obviously, we should have put more down knowing that now that they won. But yeah, so it was,
Did you
it was
use that
solid.
money to hire a landscaper so that your elderly neighbor doesn't ruin
My buddy's wife went out to Las Vegas last week and actually cashed my ticket for me. So I actually don't have the cash in hand, but I will soon.
Can you do that? I didn't know you could actually have someone cash someone else's ticket. How does that work? You just go in there and
you
you're
have
like,
you
Matt
have a
said it was
winning
okay.
ticket. No, you have a winning ticket, and you're just like, hey, here's a winning ticket.
Oh, they don't need IDs or anything?
No, I mean they take the tickets. You can't like keep it for like a souvenir or anything. But yeah, so I think when people have like a guy in Vegas or something,
Yeah.
historically, they're like they have someone who's placing their bets for them, and sending cash,
I'm just not familiar. I've got to get more familiar with it, but I believe you. I would just be in over my head at this point. I don't know how it all works for the most part. So that's interesting. I didn't know. I assumed you had to have ID.
But I got off on a tangent though.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of in Georgia in 2022, I just don't think the schedule is that tough. Like I
agree.
think I would bet on Georgia going 12-0. Like I think
I don't.
It's
They're
not
losing
like
one.
It's possible for sure, but I think Tennessee is the best team on their schedule, and the fact that game's at home, it's not like a terrifying game. I think like if it's Oregon or Tennessee, and like Oregon is that really the team? Like I don't see Kentucky beating Georgia. Like I don't see like Mississippi State, like a fluky one.
I think you're overlooking
Mississippi
too.
Mississippi State might be the toughest, along with Tennessee in Oregon.
Well, here's what's interesting. Like
as a Georgia fan, I'm just not worried about Kentucky. It's just
Kentucky
Kentucky's
on the
been
road,
a solid program.
The one I would say, is South Carolina that you haven't mentioned. For whatever reason, Kirby in South Carolina and just going to South Carolina.
There's the one time.
People forget.
Nobody forgets.
I love that I was with one of my best friends, Ryan, watching that game at the time, and him losing his absolute mind at that Georgia-South Carolina game, and me just, oh man, it was. I've never seen a man down that bad. That was rough. And it was
you talk about just like obviously anytime anyone loses in like an upset, it's always on them. It's never the other team made the plays to win. We beat ourselves. I've never seen a bigger definition of beating yourself. Like four turnovers I think in that game. Like I know Fromm threw 3 picks. I think he threw 3 of like his 5 interceptions on the season in that game. Just so uncharacteristic of Fromm. A couple of those were like off the receiver's hands, just into the defensive back's hands. And one of those was a pick 6. Like I think South Carolina had like 150 yards of offense in that game.
Yep.
Like it was
a nasty game. I feel like South Carolina was on their third
Rodrigo,
string quarterback.
All-American kicker, misses like 2 field goals. Like like everything that could have possibly happened, and he still scored 17. It was like 20-17 or something in overtime. Like no points were scored that day. So yeah, it was a bad one, but it's a noon kickoff too at South Carolina. That place,
they'll be rocking.
Second, third week of September, Williams-Brice
hot.
Stadium is going to be 100 degrees in that stadium, but it's going to take a huge improvement from South Carolina.
But no, it doesn't, because we've seen you lose to bad South Carolina teams. Like it might just be an ugly game that they just.
But if you think about it, that was Spurrier.
No, it wasn't.
The Spurrier years when people talk about Georgia having like trouble with South Carolina, it's all Spurrier. Like since Spurrier left, Georgia dominates South Carolina. Like there is the one 2019 upset, but most of these games aren't even close. Like since I think that's the only time I think South Carolina's won, since 2014? That was Gurley's junior year. So Georgia lost that one. Since 2015, Georgia's blown out, I think, South Carolina in most of the games, other than the one upset loss. So I think a lot is just made from, like, just Spurrier just kind of coaching circles around Mark Richt, like, just regardless of the quarterback situation, just manipulating the game to score enough points. Like, Spurrier was just kind of a tactical, like, master in that way, I feel like, calling the fake field goals and fake punts at the right time, that kind of stuff. So I just don't think that same, like, just how susceptible Georgia is in general. I just don't think the complete culture, just the whole feeling of Georgia, it's just different than it was under Mark Richt, where it feels like any Saturday a team could show up that's just lays an egg, and it doesn't. Under Kirby, it doesn't seem that way. I think that's the one loss since 2017. I think that's the only team Georgia's lost to that didn't finish like top 12 in the rankings. Like, for the most part, Georgia's only losing to the really good teams in their schedule under Kirby.
Yeah, we'll see.
But there's a chance South Carolina is one of those good teams. Like with Radler, second year of Shane Beamer. You know, I'm a big year two head coach guy. Like, he had a breakthrough year. I kind of think the 7-6 is a little hollow. Like, Auburn is in that 7, Florida's in that 7. Just teams that were just in such terrible positions, like, when South Carolina played them. Like, Florida had given up on their season. Like, not just poo-poo on everything Beamer did in year one, but I don't know. It's hard to be too worried about South Carolina, like, as a Georgia fan right now. Just, I don't know. We'll see. Radler could be the ultimate X factor, that they're a completely different team next year.
Yeah, and I mean, if they go 12-0, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, I look at it as more of, I don't think they run the gauntlet of going 12-0, winning the SEC title game against like an A&M or Bama, and then beating another SEC West team in the playoff, and then an Ohio State, with the way Ohio State's stacked up. Like, that just seems unlikely with the amount of turnover on this defense and where they're at. Like, it would just surprise me. The
one thing I'll say is I will be surprised if Georgia isn't playing in the SEC championship with a chance to go to the playoff. Like,
I would agree with that.
Like 2018, people didn't think they were going to go to the playoff, but they were ranked 4th, and, you know, if they won, they were in. 2019 versus LSU, like, they were ranked 4th or 5th. People didn't think they were going to win, but they had that opportunity. I could see something similar. Maybe they're 11-1, ranked 4th or 5th, and they have to win the SEC championship to get in. Like, I would be surprised if Georgia is 10-2 in the SEC championship, going into the SEC championship game, or even misses the SEC championship completely. Like, I don't see anything worse than 11-1, personally. And I think that's mainly because of the schedule, not because I think Georgia's just going to be unquestionably that good again. I think the offense could definitely be better with how much they have coming back.
Matt Green, I have a trivia question for you.
Hit me.
The last time Georgia went to Mississippi State, what was the result?
Oh, man. Was the last time they went like 2010?
Yes, it was.
Oh, shoot. They did lose. I want to say 24-12?
That is correct.
Is that the score?
That was the score.
Let's go. I think there was like oh man, that may have been when they had that big running back. That was like kind of the workhorse.
Was that Dixon?
Dude that
Anthony
played,
Dixon?
49ers. I want to say he was on that team. But that was Mullen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was Rick's one losing season. Lost to UCF in the, what was that? Oh, what bowl game was the UCF Liberty Bowl or?
Speaking of, did you see Outback Bowl got renamed?
Oh man, it's a sad day, isn't it? Like we've talked about that before. Like these corporate sponsors I grew up with.
You're gonna
like,
love
it. Those are normal names. Yeah, what is it?
The ReliaQuest Bowl.
Like ReliaQuest? What is this? What is that company? Do you even know?
I have no idea, but it is the ReliaQuest Bowl.
It just sounds like a generic corporate name. Like, I don't know. It's like Nokia.
They're global cybersecurity.
Okay.
Based out of Tampa.
But yeah, I just grew up with the Nokia Sugar Bowl, and it's like, that just sounded normal. But that was obviously a corporate corporate name, but it was like, yeah, that's the one I grew up with. But yeah, now seeing the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, it's not right. But yeah, Outback Bowl, what is this? That was one of the last things we had left.
But I will say, you're in good hands. Georgia's lost to Mississippi State once since 1974.
Oh, wow. So, but 2010 was the last time they went at Mississippi State?
That was, yes.
Man, that's.
And then before that, you did 2005, and then before that, it was 1996. You basically went once a decade, because the last time before that was 88, and then 82. Yeah, you basically almost went every other decade.
Yeah, and the schedules were weird in the 90s. Like, I think they had multiple locked teams from the West. Like, Georgia used to play Ole Miss every year for a while.
Well, divisions didn't exist. I think people assume that divisions and conferences
to 92 is when they started.
Yeah.
But even, like, in the 90s, like, Auburn and Florida were still playing every year. And, like, Georgia and Ole Miss were, like, locked rivals for a while there. So, I don't know. It's weird how they got these conferences set up. But that's why I'm so in favor of the new scheduling, man. Everybody playing everybody twice in 4 years. Like, that excites me. Everyone, like, you play 4 years in college, you're going to play at every stadium in the SEC. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. There you go. Matt Green, Army Navy moving to 5 different sites over the next 5 years. I just love the Army Navy game. Come from a very military heavy family, both sides. Dad's a retired Marine, but man, I don't. It's because they want to expand the brand. I get that a little bit, but not doing it in Annapolis or in I think it's been Annapolis and Philadelphia. I want to say
Philadelphia usually, right?
I don't really.
But they've changed it up a few times.
Yeah.
I'm
do
all
we not
for
count
it.
this as a neutral site, or do we not count this as neutral
No,
site-itis?
I'm all for this one because they have like some reasons for it, some kind of funny reasons, but like 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party, so they're.
Oh, is that part of it?
Yeah, so they're playing in Gillette Stadium, and then I think it's the 25th anniversary of 9/11. So that's 2026 that they're playing in New York. So yeah, whatever. Like it's cool. It seems like the kind of game that a lot of people like. So it kind of makes sense for like take this game to like other parts of the country. You know, so. I don't know. They're not really taking it to other parts of the country, really just like different areas in the same part of the country. But yeah, I mean, I'm cool with it. Whatever. It's fine.
There you go. Matt Green, we can also throw out there very quickly before we do our Pac-12 betting odds for this fall. Bronco Nation News reported Wednesday. Dirk Koetter, old OC. Multiple-time OC with the Atlanta Falcons and former Arizona State coach, former Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, former Boise State coach back in the late 90s, and former defensive coordinator for Boise State, Ron Collins, are rejoining the program and Andy Avalos' program as senior analysts. The rest of it is just that they coached together at Boise a long time ago. Dan Hawkins.
I did not know that Dirk Koetter was head coach at Boise State.
Oh, yeah. He was one of those early ones back in the day.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
One of my favorite Boise State games was that one they went to Athens. That was a fun one.
Oh, yeah, man. Jared Zabransky.
Yeah, Jared Zabransky. And then I like the result more of the one in the Dome. The one in the Dome was more of my deal.
Yeah, you like that? Yeah, I think I want to say Georgia scored first in that game, too. I think Brandon Boykin had like an 80-yard reverse for a touchdown. So I think they went up 7-0, and then it was, like 35-14? Like, they got dominated. Like,
can you imagine that happening now?
In that game.
Like, Kirby just getting boat raced by a group of 5 team now?
No, absolutely not. That's when I think Mark Rick's obviously his seat got hottest when he got fired, but that's when like the seat got the hottest was 2011. Open with a loss to Boise State, and then the second week lost South Carolina. And it was like 0-2, and like after the 6-7 season, like that was absolutely on fire. And then Georgia won 10 straight, ended up in the SEC championship. Should have had a way bigger lead on LSU at halftime. Dropped like multiple touchdown passes. I don't know if you remember that. Malcolm Mitchell, true freshman, dropped a wide open touchdown. But they had like dominated the first half. I think LSU like didn't have a touchdown or something, or didn't have a first down or something the whole first half. And then like number one LSU, and then I think it was like 10-0 at halftime. And then Honey Badger took the punt to the house, and it was just like, oh wow. And then they just got routed. I think it was like 41-17 or something. They blew the brakes off Georgia.
They've done it a couple times over the years. I remember that SEC title game a couple years ago. That didn't go particularly well for the Dogs.
Hey, to be fair, Georgia, that was probably closer than anyone else played LSU the entire season. Like I think that was closer than either of their playoff games. They held them to like 35 points, 34 points. Like that offense was scoring dropping 60 on Oklahoma. So there is that. But yeah, they definitely blasted them.
There you go. I just start blasting. Always Sunny fans will get that one. Then we got to do our Pac-12 title betting odds. Matt Green. I'm curious to see where you go here because I have my one that I like the most based on where you're at. So right now, plus 140 for USC, plus 300 for the Ducks, plus 400 for the Utes, plus 1,200 for the Bruins, plus 1,400 for the Huskies, plus 3,000 for the Cougs, plus 4,000 for the Beavers, plus 5,000 for Arizona State, plus 5,000 for the Golden Bears, plus 6,000 for Stanford, plus 15,000 for Colorado, and plus 50,000 for the Arizona Wildcats, who I don't believe have ever won the Pac-12, if I recall. I don't think they've ever actually won it.
Are you sure? I know they went to a Rose Bowl.
I don't think they won it,
Teddy
though.
Bruschi? They didn't win the conference that year?
I don't think so, but if they have, that's the only time. I want to say that was the stat. It's like they've actually never won it. I know Colorado's never won it. Who else in this conference? I think Cal may have won it, but I'm not 100% on that. But either way, I'm going to look that up. Who is your favorite out of that list right now?
Looking at their Football Reference page, it says they've won 6 conference championships.
But were those Pac-12?
I do not know if those were Pac-12 era, but or Pac-10 era. But you know where I'm going with this. You got to go with the Utes, man.
Okay.
I feel like they just not only just the money aspect of it, like for USC to be such a heavy favorite, I just don't think makes sense to me. Like Utah, they're just the most consistent program in the Pac-12. And Cam Rising, he could be a top 10 quarterback in the country this year, maybe better. Like he was a dynamic athlete for sure. I think he's the kind of guy that you kind of need to win in college, like those guys that have that element of running the ball. So I'm high on Utah coming into this year. I can't put that much on USC year one of Lincoln Riley. Like there's just so many moving parts. Like they should obviously have talent. They should be more talented than they were last year. But like year one, I just don't know. And I definitely can't put Oregon ahead of Utah right now. With Lanning year one, it's even more unproven than Lincoln Riley, and he didn't bring a squad with him like Riley did.
I found it. They have not won it outright ever. They tied it once in '93, so I'm guessing that's the Bruschi year.
So that's got to be the Bruschi when they went to the
They tied it with
Bowl.
there was a 3-way tie in '93 for UCLA, Arizona, and USC. A 3-way tie. What?
Oh, wow.
So who would you guess? There have only been...
they went to the Fiesta Bowl that year, apparently.
There you go. There's only been 4 schools that have won the Pac-12 since 2007. Who do you think those 4 are, Matt Green?
Oh, man. 4 schools since 2007. It's got to be Stanford.
They are one, yep.
USC. Utah and Oregon.
That's correct.
There it is. That was an easy
Oh,
one.
Washington, too. I guess it's 5. Never mind. My math was off. Wait, Utah, Oregon, Washington,
'cause
USC,
Washington
Stanford. Oh,
definitely
yeah,
won.
sorry. Excuse me, 5. I meant 5. But Oregon has
Was
the
it
most
amateur
here.
hour?
I'm sorry. Well, Oregon has... It's interesting because Stanford has 2012, 2013. Oregon went 2014. Stanford won 3 of 4 with those Luck Harbaugh years. They're pretty dominant. And Washington obviously had the Chris Peterson blips. Utah recently won, obviously, in 2021. But you go down this list, you're like, Arizona State has won it. They won it in 96, and they tied it in 2007. They won it in 86, but not a lot of history there. Cal has won it a couple times, 2006, and that was the last time they won it for... You're not going to... This is wild. Since 1975. So they went from 1975 to 98, or to... Where'd it go? 2006. You go down this list, this is like
Who's
one of
that,
those things.
Cal?
Yeah, that's like one of those things to keep in mind. Oregon State, nowhere to be seen. They tied it in 2000, and then before that, guess what? They have only won it once since 1964. Wow. They won it in 1964.
So did USC win it that when they played in the Rose Bowl a couple years ago versus Saquon Barkley, that great game? Did they win it?
That was the 2017 year, right?
That's that. I think that's right.
Yes, they won it in 2017.
Or wait, no, the Rose Bowl was Georgia, Oklahoma that year.
Was that Fiesta?
2017. So maybe it's 2016. So could that have been? Would that have been Washington? What year was Washington in the playoff?
Washington
because
was
they could have been in the Rose. So they could have been in the Rose Bowl, but Washington won the conference and they were in the playoff kind of thing.
That's probably it.
Okay.
Was that a Cody Kessler year? Was Kessler in?
No, that was Oh shoot, what's his name for the Panthers?
Sam Darnold was that still Darnold? Okay.
Yeah, that was Darnold for sure because he balled out in that game. I think he may have taken over that season. Because I don't feel like he was. Yeah, I don't feel like he was the starter of the full season. I think he was like kind of came on, and then in the next year he had all the hype coming in.
Interesting. But yeah, so I just think this is instructive when people talk about who's could be the dark horse. It's like 5 teams won this conference in the last 15 years. So when you think about that,
there's only one team I would put money on as a dark horse though. What were you gonna about to say?
Well, see, I would put money on the dark horse is I think the best value is UCLA at plus 1,200. DTR back for his 23rd season. I think there's a lot of returning talent. Chip Kelly, they're moving in the right direction. I think they're like one of those where if everything clicks and they're healthy, like it wouldn't surprise me if they go 10-2, 11-1, something like that with a healthy group and their offense is really humming and DTR is a Heisman type guy. Like that would not surprise me. I think you throw in $50. It's fine. My other one is Stanford. Like Stanford with Tanner McKee, who might be the number 1 quarterback taken. Like he's gonna be a riser. Like he was good this past year, and people forget he was a 5-star kid, and a lot of talent. He went on a mission, so he was gone. He's an older guy, so he was gone for 2 years. If McKee's great and Stanford and David Shaw get back on, like they've shown they can do this. They can win the gauntlet. I mean, not a lot of NFL players in this roster. I don't think they had an offensive player drafted this past year. In the NFL draft, so they don't have who was the workhorse running back? I've already forgotten. Bryce Love. They don't have one of those guys behind him, but I think Stanford at that.
Toby Gerhardt's not walking through that door.
That's right. Plus 6,000 for Stanford, who might have the best quarterback in the conference this year, because people are like, oh, it's Caleb Williams, oh, it's Bo Nix, or oh, it's DTR. It's like, I mean, there's a case to be made. Tanner McKee is the best quarterback in this conference, and if you have the best quarterback, hey. Anything's possible. I'm along
the same logic there. I feel like if I'm just, going dark horse long shot, I'm going Washington State. Just because of the transfer, Cameron Ward. If, you capture lightning in a bottle and he just happens to, go off and he's the best quarterback in the Pac-12, like something crazy like that would have to happen. Like he threw 47 touchdowns last year at Incarnate Ward. Like, who knows? Sling that thing around, but I don't expect Washington. I don't expect the Cougars to win the Pac-12 by any means. I think Utah's the best bet, man. Kyle Whittingham, 18th season at Utah.
But here's the problem with the Utah bet. They won the Pac-12 for the first time this past year. That was it. Like, that's the only time he's won it.
And they're just getting started.
That's the thing. Maybe.
How many years have they been in the Pac-12? They haven't been in the Pac-12 the whole time he's been there, though.
No, they have not.
It's been like a decade now, right? 8 years or something like that. Yeah.
But they feel like a long timer, right? Like they just feel like they've been there forever. Now that they're officially at Pac-12 status, they need to add. Who would you add? Who are the next 2? If you had to add 2 more, because Big 12 being 14, if you had to throw 2 more in the Pac-12 right now, who would it be?
Well, nobody wants Boise State, man, but I feel
Yeah.
like someone's got to take Boise State, right?
If I was Boise, I would go independent. Like Hawaii and Boise should just go independent and play everybody.
Yeah, I honestly, I could see it. They joined the Pac-12 in 2011, by the way.
Yeah, 11 years.
I would say probably one of those California schools, like a Fresno State, a San Diego State.
San Diego State's my number one choice, I think.
Yeah, I would say someone like that, because BYU seemed like a logical candidate, but obviously them going out to the Big 12. That's not going to happen. You know, North Dakota State should have made a jump up. We should have seen North Dakota State join the Big 12, or maybe they'll join the Pac-12 because geography doesn't matter anymore.
Hold on, you don't do that. Like they would go up to like the Mountain West.
No,
like,
Mountain West, the American Conference or something like that. But we got to get North Dakota State up in D1. Like you guys you can't just be beating up on the FCS for this long. Like, come on, get out of here.
It's bad timing. We're literally about to split off the Power 5 and Group of 5, and we're trying to bring people into the fold. No, stay where you are, man. Like,
that's fair.
You're winning titles. Like, that's what I'm...
But they're winning titles. Like, Boise State was dominating division or FCS in the 90s. And they were like, we need more competition. Like, Georgia Southern, I mean, it'd been like a decade since they actually won a championship, and they were still trying to make the leap. App State, we've seen a bunch of teams that just kind of dominate at that level that, raise your game.
I
then
think
Nebraska fans would have nothing to say if North Dakota State came in and had a competitive D1 team.
Yeah. I guess it would be. I just would not. I mean, I would love Boise. They feel like a Pac-12 team, but I still think Boise and Hawaii as independents would be cool, and just play everybody. But if I had to do two right now, I think I would go Aztecs, and then I would go Colorado State. They're just sitting there. I feel like the Colorado State Rams should be bigger.
I don't know what your obsession is with Colorado State. I feel like you want that to happen. I don't feel like Colorado State's on that level. Like I don't feel like have they ever been played for a conference championship? Like I don't even feel like they're good in that conference.
They feel like I don't know. Maybe I just have a soft spot for them. I don't know what it is. Like their logo.
Maybe we can get some kind of like Notre Dame like half joined the ACC. Like maybe we can get like Boise State for football and get like Gonzaga for basketball, and they kind of split their membership there. I don't know.
There you go. That's an idea. I had not considered that.
Gotta get creative here.
You do. I wonder, do you think they stay for a while?
No. Dude, I just thought about it. No, I just thought of it. UNLV.
UNLV. Football.
No, that's the team, man. Vegas?
Yeah.
That's the team. UNLV. If they're going to expand it, it's all about TV markets. So, like, obviously Las Vegas is already in that Pac-12, right in the middle of the Pac-12 anyway.
Right.
But like San Diego State doesn't offer like a new TV market, same with probably, I guess Boise does.
Well, San Diego's huge. That's the whole thing. And San Diego State's they're good at everything. They're a good program. They're big. It's a city school. Like I think there's a path to make it in San Diego State.
I guess that's true. Program. Boise State, that's probably more likely than Boise State. So San Diego State and UNLV, I feel like that'd be the answer. Mm-hmm. Get another state and expand that footprint.
Do you know when the last time they won 6 games was, Matt Green?
UNLV?
Yeah.
Oh, man. What, like 2012?
2013. They're 2-18 the last 2 years, Matt Green, under Marcus Arroyo. 2-18.
It's not great.
No. And then you go through this. The amount of losses, Matt Green. They have not won double-digit games since 1984. They have won 9 games,
but they were
0 times. I
think of UNLV as like a respectable.
When they were in the WAC, they were never.
They also got basketball going for them.
That's what you're thinking. It's only been basketball. Like they're a horrible.
Maybe
program.
I'm just confusing them with. I feel like them and Fresno State and San Diego State all seem so similar. They are nowhere near the football caliber of those schools. Yeah, San Diego State
blown off the map in the Pac-12. They're going 0-12 yearly.
That's fair. Okay, maybe they're not the answer. San Diego State is like a low key like just powerhouse. Like they win double-digit games like almost every year. It seems like.
That's what I'm saying.
And they produced some actual NFL talent too for years now too.
Their punter just got drafted in like the 3rd round.
Low-key running back you out there, San Diego State. Going on back to the Marshall Faulk days.
Good uniforms. Pretty cool.
Tony Gwynn also, San Diego State guy.
Yeah, San Diego Padre. There you go. Matt Green, so your final prediction. Who do you think on June 16th wins the Pac-12? Who's your gut telling you right now?
Give me the Utes, man.
Okay. What does Oregon do? Does Oregon do this? Because I was thinking when you were doing that, I was like, what is Oregon? Do they do that?
It does. Dude, they do something like maybe they do. This doesn't seem very cool, so I don't think they do that.
I don't know. They do something like it, though.
I don't know.
Oh, that might be right. That might be it. I feel like I have a memory of like LeGarrette Blount or somebody doing that.
I was trying to think of like DeAnthony Thomas. You sent me that video the other day.
Is that not wild how fast he was in that opening kickoff against Kansas State? That was ridiculous.
Not how you want to start a ball game in the Fiesta Bowl. Although, what were you going to say?
Well, I mean, Devin Hester returned the opening kick in the Super Bowl against the Colts, and the Colts ended up winning.
I was going to say Ted Ginn returned the opening kick in the Fiesta Bowl, or in that stadium against Florida, and I don't know if they scored again. No, I think it was like 41-14 or something. But, yeah, Florida put it on them. Troy Smith. Troy Smith is one of those Heisman winners that everyone hates on after the fact. Like, oh, yeah, Troy Smith won a Heisman, and I defend
on Troy Smith.
I defend that Heisman like forever. Like Troy Smith was dynamic that year. Like there wasn't like McFadden. I think finished second, and McFadden is like he's like a top like 3 running back in my lifetime personally. Like top like McFadden is up there. Like he's an all timer for me. So McFadden was also great, but like. I think Troy Smith gets hated on like after the fact because he wasn't good in the NFL, and it was like, oh, the typical best quarterback on the best team and wins the Heisman. And I feel like he gets too much hate for that because he made some plays. He was an exciting player to watch, and they were undefeated, number 1. Like that's kind of how it goes.
That's true. Who's like your biggest? You'll defend this Heisman choice to the death.
Like that should have won it?
No, that won it, that other people have been like, I don't know. Who's your number 1? You're like, no, this is the guy. He should have won. Who do you back the hardest of like, no, this was deserving. He won it.
I mean, I guess that one is up there because there's not that many that you just straight up hate on the guy winning. I would say the biggest Heisman hill I would die on, I guess, is that Johnny Manziel should have won it in 2013. He should have won it back-to-back years. But he did all his off-the-field shit and whatever was going on, and the Heisman is a holier-than-thou trophy, and they didn't stand for that. They prefer a guy who steals crab legs. They'll give it to him. But no, Jameis Winston just didn't – like, he was really good, but that Florida State team was just so dominant. Like, I didn't feel like – it was kind of how – like Tebow kind of broke the barrier for a sophomore to win the Heisman, and then we just started giving it to sophomores like every year. It's like, well, it doesn't mean every sophomore should win. That's how I felt like with Manziel. It was like, oh, freshmen can win the Heisman now? Like, well, Jameis Winston, let's give it to him. Number 1 quarterback on the number 1 team. And I feel like Johnny Manziel was honestly better his sophomore year than he was his freshman year. Like the rushing numbers weren't better. But I don't know. That's one of my Heisman takes. I'll defend for sure. Also, that Todd Gurley would have won the Heisman if he never got suspended. That's another hill I'll die on.
I think my number 1 is Ndamukong Suh should have won it in 2009.
So who was 2009?
That's
Ingram.
Yeah.
I could.
This was a weird voting list. So Ingram went 1, Gerhart went 2, Colt McCoy went 3. Sue went 4. Sue, we should also mention, he had 52 tackles, 12 sacks, and a pick. And if you remember Ndamukong Suh that year, like there is just no. It was kind of like the Will Anderson type thing, where like if you watch that college football season, you're like, this is the most dominant player on the field
for sure.
Like there's no one blocking this man. Like he was just an unbelievable, and he was a senior. Like Ingram was a sophomore, and I understand that shouldn't play a role, but it's like, dude, that season was an Ndamukong Suh season. And you look at it, so he finishes 4th, Tebow's 5th, CJ Spiller is 6th, and then Kellen Moore, though, crazy stats, 39 TDs, 3 picks as a sophomore at Boise. Case Keenum, though. So Keenum throws for 5,600 yards that year, Matt Green, 44 TDs, 15 picks, 56-71. Compare that to Tebow, who finished 5th, as a senior. How many yards do you think Tebow threw compared to Case Keenum that same year? This is 2009.
I mean, he probably threw for like 3,000 yards or something, right?
2,800. Case Keenum played the same number of games as Tebow and doubled his passing yards. That's insanity. Case Keenum was just like, folks who love Will Rogers and what's going on with the Leach offense and what they're got, like, Will could be good, but man, he's got his, like, Case Keenum's college stats are still some of the craziest things imaginable. I think he has 155 touchdowns total in his career. He has a quarterback rating of 160.6. He completed almost 70% of his passes every single year. His yards per attempt were 10, two different seasons. He was just ahead of his time in so many different ways. I think he's still the all-time wins leader in college.
Well, he had to
football,
play
right?
like 6 years, right?
He played 5.
Case Keenum, all-time wins?
Yeah, I think he is, right?
I know he's all-time yards, right?
Maybe it's just passing yards.
Yeah. I mean,
Desmond
Case
Ritter
Keenum's-
might be all-time wins now, right?
No, I don't think he left early, didn't he? He wasn't a senior last year, was he?
I think he was. Hold on, all-time QB wins leader. Let's see. Is Desmond Ritter number 1? Yeah, Desmond Ritter won 44 games. Yeah, he's the all-time leader.
That can't be number 1.
Andy Dalton is number 2 at 42-7. Number 3 is David Green at 42 at 10. He was 42.
So I thought how many did Colt McCoy win? I was thinking Colt McCoy broke David Green's record.
You know what's also crazy? Desmond Ritter never lost a home game. 26-0 at home.
Oh wow,
that's kind of wild. You know, Desmond Ritter is college football's winningest QB.
Fair enough. I'll tell you one last Heisman. We could probably do a whole episode on this. Mm-hmm. One last Heisman hill I'll die on. 2003.
Mm-hmm.
Jason White over Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald was the best player in college football. Like, I've never seen a wide receiver be as dominant as Larry Fitzgerald was. Like, it was just absurd. Like, just throw it up to this man. Like, as good as Devontae Smith was, it felt like kind of a product of the system in a way that, like, Alabama's just so good. Like, they got the best quarterback, the best running back. Like, I mean, was he the best wide receiver on the team? Like, Jalen Waddle was the best receiver the first 5 or 6 games when everyone was healthy, right? So, like, Devontae Smith, what he did was super impressive, but he didn't just seem like just the dominant, unguardable player as much as Alabama's offense was just dominant and unguardable. Like, I honestly may have had Najee Harris over Devontae Smith that year because he was so incredible. So, not taking anything away from Devontae Smith, but Larry Fitzgerald that year, just 22 touchdowns, like 1,600 yards receiving, like just absurd. Some of the most ridiculous catches I've ever seen.
Also, the list had taken out, for whatever reason, Colt and Kellen. Kellen's number 1 at 50-3, and Colt's number 2 at 45-8.
Okay, I was thinking someone got to 50. Okay, yeah. Kellen Moore, that's a good distinction for Kellen Moore to have. Like that'll be at the top of his resume on the Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame ballot he's on.
Oh, I know what it is. He's the active. So that's what it is. He's the active all-time wins leader. Because Colt and Kellen are gone. So there you go. Active wins leader. There you go. Matt Green. You can find you on Twitter at Matt_W_Green. Keep up with all of your great college football takes on Twitter.com and all that good stuff. Thank you as always, my friend, and I will talk to you next week.